Screw this up, you're going to kill your retirement portfolio. And I see this a lot, actually. It drives me up the wall. So this is from a chapter in a book I'm not going to use. I was going to use it, but now I'm just like, nah, it doesn't fit well in my overall book that I wanted. It's too bad because it's a good piece of work. It took me a long time to build. Not a long time. It took me a little bit to come up with. But anyway, I'm going to share it with you. This is the inflation fallacy, essentially, if you will. We're using the incorrect inflation data. Monte Carlo is based on 3 inputs. All right, so this is where my chapter was. 3 inputs for Monte Carlo, because most people now are using Monte Carlo scenarios, rightly so. Monte Carlos are based on 1 is expectation investment returns. I expect a 5% rate of return, a 6% rate of return, whatever. Number 2 is a volatility around those investment returns, volatility being measured by standard deviation. Number 3 is the inflation rate as well. All right, so Monte Carlo used those 3 numbers right there, okay? Those 3 things, investment returns, standard deviations, and inflation. So check this out. The problem here is that while standard deviations are used to tell us the ups and downs of your portfolio, we're using a fixed inflation rate. This is hugely problematic because there is no such thing as a fixed inflation. Compare right here, real inflation versus 3% fixed. 3% fixed is in the red. Real inflation is hardly ever anywhere near 3%. It's not really there. And the funny thing is, the average inflation from 1930 to 2024 was 3.2%, which doesn't seem that far off by a 3% fixed inflation. But it wasn't anywhere near that. In fact, we're going to show you an example right here, the real world impact. We're going to take $1 million. We're going to assume a 4% withdrawal rate, keeping up with a fixed inflation, a 3% inflation, all right? Because we're in 1930. We're saying, hey, Josh, it's 1930. I need my portfolio to give me a 3% to keep up with inflation. I'm going to assume a 3% inflation rate. I got $1 million, all right? So the first year we're going to take 40,000 out, and then you can see right here, 40,000 out. The next year will be 41,200, whatever that is, 3%. This is our 4% with a fixed inflation of 3% a year. We end up taking 1.9 million out. In reality, though, we've only needed to take 1.4 million. All right, so we overspent by $500,000, which meant if we retired in 1930 running these models of fixed 3% inflation, an investment return with a standard deviation, we would have said that we need 500,000 more to keep up with inflation than we actually did. And that meant you probably would have worked longer or spent less, which is unfortunate because you would have left money on the table or you would have left time on the table. 1966, disaster. Someone retiring in 1966 with the same 3% fixed inflation would have spent $1.3 million short because of 1970s inflation crisis, which wasn't made by government spending. All these people, government spending is causing inflation. I'm like, really? Is it now? Because government spending certainly didn't cause the inflation, the biggest inflation we've ever had in the 1960s and 1970s. It didn't do it. The 1970s inflation crisis meant they needed far more than they planned to cover their actual expenses. So here's our 3% fixed inflation. We would have thought we needed 1.9 million. Instead, we needed 3.22 million. So if we retired in 1966 thinking, hey, we just need to cover 1.9 million of expenditures because of 3% fixed inflation, we would have ran out of money unequivocally because we did not have enough because inflation was much higher than 3% fixed. Do I show what it was? I think it was like 5 point something. Let's see. It's bizarre. Retirement software accounts for investment volatility but ignores inflation volatility, even though both stem from the same changing economic conditions. Think about it. In 2008, the Great Recession, we had deflation, something we hadn't had since basically decades. I think we had one bout of deflation like 1957 or something like that, small potato stuff. In 2022, after COVID stimulus and supply chain chaos, we saw inflation rates we also hadn't seen in decades. Assuming a 3% steady inflation for both makes no sense. So what can you do? Use historical inflation patterns with all the real-world variation may give you better retirement projections than Monte Carlo simulations with fixed inflation assumptions. A silver lining. Inflation volatility isn't all that bad. High inflation can mean a higher Social Security check. That says no one wants to see their portfolio drop by 57% like we did from October 2007 to March 9th of 2009. No one wants to see that, even if we have deflation or lower inflation. The issue is if you don't have a good assessment for inflation, you could be SOL. And the way you do this is a year by year by year thing. That's all there is to it. You sit there and say, okay, this is why I have to be flexible when you're spending. Because you're just like, dude, if I'm spending too much because inflation is too high, my portfolio is too high, I'm going to have to freaking put the brakes on. And if you don't, you're going to be doomed, man. Or then you say, hey, inflation's way lower than anticipated, so now I'm going to freaking buy that, and get this new dog that I've been waiting for. Snaggletooth Vampire. Look at him. Now, you better be, this is why you can't just set it and forget a financial plan. This is not a legal document. This is a living document, a living Bible, if you will. All right. God bless. Smash that like button. We'll see you.